English. Those in the islands that have been long besieged shall take vigor and force against their enemies, those without shall die for hunger, being overcome, they shall be put in greater famine than they were before. Not. This prophecy came to pass when the Spaniards besieged Leiden in Holland, for the Dutch broke the dikes, whereby the water came upon them so fast, that they were more besieged and starved than those of the town, and their army wholly destroyed. Read Cardinal Bentivoglios's History of the Low Countries, as also Strada. English. The good old man shall be buried alive, near the great river by a false suspicion, the new old one made noble by his riches, the gold of his ransom shall be taken in the way. Not. This prophecy is divided into two parts. The two first verses are concerning an old man that shall be buried alive near a great river, upon a false suspicion. The latter two are concerning a young man, who shall assume unto himself the name of a noble family, and so make himself noble by his riches, but being afterward taken prisoner, the money that was sent for his ransom shall be taken in the way. English. When the lame man shall attain to the kingdom, he shall have a bastard for his near competitor, he and his kingdom shall be so scabby, that before he be cured it will be late. Not. The words and the sense are plain. English. Naples, Florence, Faenza, and Imola shall be put into so much distress, for being complaisant to the unhappy one of Nola, who was complained of for having mocked his superior. Not. Naples, Florence, Faenza, Imola and Nola are all cities in Italy, the rest is plain. English. Pau, Verona, Vicenza, Saragossa shall be hit by the sword, the country shall be moist with blood, so great a plague and so vehement shall come, that though the succours be near, the remedy shall be far off. Not. By Pau here are understood the towns that are seated upon that river. Verona, Vicenza are two cities in Italy, belonging to the Venetians. Saragossa is a city in Sicily. English. In Germany shall divers sects arise, coming very near the happy paganism, the heart captivated in small receivings, shall open the gate to pay the true tithes. Not. The first and second verses have been verified sufficiently. By the two last verses, he meaneth that the heart of everyone shall be in fear, so that they shall come to an agreement, which the true tithes shall be paid, and everyone come to his own again. English. The third climat comprehended under Aries, in the year 1700. The 27th of October, the king of Persia shall be taken by those of Egypt, battle, death, loss, a great shame to the Christians. Not. Here be three notable things to be observed. One is the plain and punctual specification of the time, in which the prophecy shall come to pass, viz. the 7th of October in the year 1700. The second is, that the king of Persia shall be taken by those of Egypt. The third is, the shame and confusion that the Christians shall suffer for the same. English. The chief of Scotland with 6 of Germany shall be taken prisoners by seamen of the East, they shall go through the Calpri and Spain, and shall be made a present in Persia to the new fearful king. Not. By the Calpri is understood the Capsar promontory, which is at the mouth of the straits, by and beyond which these prisoners will be carried into Persia for a present to the king, who then shall be some fearful person. English. The great baller proud without shame, shall be elected governor of the army, the stoutness of his competitor, the bridge being broken, the city shall faint for fear. Not. Pardon saith, that in the year 1558. The lord of Bonnevet being dead, the king of France did choose Francis of Vendôme, vidame of Amiens, to succeed the said Bonnevet, in the office of colonel of the French foot. This vidame is noted by all historians, for a rash proud man, that had a good opinion of himself, and found fault with all the commands of the Marshal of Brissac, then general of the army. The king, in consideration of his birth, and that he was a good soldier, gave him the place of the Lord Bonnevet, according to what the author saith, the great baller, and shall be elected governor in the army. If you ask in what army he was elected governor, the third verse answereth, in the army of his competitor, that is, the Marshal of Brissac, who did chide him severely for disobeying his commands, and was like once to have killed him. The fourth verse proved true at the taking of Queyras, where the bridge, through which the succors came to relieve the town, being broken, the town grew so fearful that it surrendered itself to the Marshal of Brissac. English. Arras, Antibes, and the towns about Nice, shall be destroyed by sea and land, the grasshoppers shall have the land, the sea, and wind favorable, they shall be taken, killed, thrust up, plundered, without law of war. Anat. Arras and Antibes are towns of Provence, bordering upon Nice, which is a town of Piedmont. All that coast is threatened here to be ruined by the grasshoppers, that is, the Turks, which fell out about the year 1558. For the King of France having called the Turks to his succors against Charles V Emperor, they came and took Nice in the behalf of the French, where they committed unheard cruelties, as also upon all that coast. English. The fatal and eternal order by chain shall come to turn by consequent order. Of Port Fosun the chain shall be broken, the city taken, and the enemy presently after Anat. This prophecy regardeth only the city of Marseilles, which is the most famous port town that the French have upon the Mediterranean Sea, and which was anciently a Greek colony, peopled by the Phocean seas. This city is threatened here to have the chain of her port broken, and to be taken by her enemies, and the said enemies to be a little while after taken in it. English. From the English kingdom the worthy driven away, the counsellor through anger shall be burnt, his partners shall creep so low, that the bastard shall be half received. Anat. This is one of those prophecies that concern the English nation, and which by its event hath made this book and the author thereof famous, for nothing can be more plain to the meanest capacity than the sense and words of these 4 verses. By the first is meant the King's most excellent Majesty Charles II. Now reigning, who being the true heir to the kingdom, and most worthy to rule, was driven out of the kingdom by a rebellious rout of his subjects. The second verse expresseth the punishment inflicted upon the counsellors and abettors of so heinous a crime, who were most of them hanged, drawn and quartered, their entrails burnt. The third verse signifieth the low estate of the abettors of that pernicious counsel. The fourth verse is understood that bastard faction, which was like to supplant Cromwell upon the division of the army. English. The long hairs of the Celtian France, joined with foreign nations, shall put in prison the Aquitanic agent, to make him yield to their intentions. Anat. The Celtan France is that part of France included between the river Loire and that of Schelde in Flanders. They are called here the long hairs, because in ante time they used to wear long hairs. English. The great city shall be made very desolate. Not one of the inhabitants shall be left in it, wall, sex, church, and virgin ravished, by sword, fire, plague, cannon, people shall die. Anat. This is concerning the town of St. Quentin, which was taken by the Spaniards in the year 1557. Upon the 27th of August, and 17 days after the Battle of St. Lawrence, it was taken by assault, and all the inhabitants put to the sword. English. The city shall be taken by cheat and deceit, by the means of a fair young one caught in it, assault shall be given, Robin near Loudy, he, and all shall die, for having deceived. Anat. It is a city that shall be taken by the cheat and deceit of a young fair man, who himself shall be taken in his craft. The difficulty lieth in the third verse, viz. What he meaneth by Robin and Loudy. I could find nothing by transposition of letters, therefore I suppose the author had a mind to reserve the exposition to himself, and to one that should be clearer sighted than I English. A chief man of Ausone shall go into Spain by sea, he shall stay at Marseilles, he shall languish a great while before his death, after his death great wonders shall be seen. Anat. Here is nothing obscure but the word Ausone, by which is meant the city of Bordeaux, so named by the author everywhere, for having brought forth that famous Latine poet and council of Rome, Ausonius. English. French fleet do not come near unto Corsica, much less to Sardinia, thou shalt repent of it, all of you shall die frustrate of the help grain, blood shall swim, being captive thou shalt not believe me. Anat. The Baron of La Garde, coming from Rome, where he had carried the cardinals of Tournon and Lorraine, received order to go into Corsica, to relieve with ammunition the two towns that the French kept still in possession in that island, Glace and Saint Boniface, which after the general peace made at Cambrai, anno 1559, were restored to the Commonwealth of Genoa. When he was coming near the island, there arose such a storm that they were constrained to go as near land as they could, viz. in St. Florence, till the storm was over. At the same time, by reason of the said storm, 11 ships loaded with 6,000 Spaniards, going for Italy, took shelter in the same place, a good way off from the said baron. At the first, the Spanish ships did not spy the French galleys, but the Baron de la Garde discovered the Spaniards, and bid his galleys to set upon them. 2 of the Spanish ships were taken, in which were 1,200, or 1,500 Spaniards, part of which were drowned, and the rest made slaves. The Baron chased the rest, but the storm so scattered them, that the 9 escaped. Before this encounter, the Genoese captain, Andrew d'Oria, took all the island from the French, anno 1553, and kept it ever since, by sending continual supplies. On the other side, the King of France sent supplies by the Lord of Termes to those that were retired in the island of Glace. One time among the rest, about the latter end of the year 1555, there was sent a notable supply from the French, to which the author speaketh now in these terms. French fleet do not come near unto Corsica, nor Sardinia, which is another island near Corsica. The 3rd verse giveth the reason of it, ye shall die, being frustrated of the help grain. Grain is the Provençal language, which was the maternal one of our author, signifieth a galley. The sense therefore is this, you shall be frustrate of the help of the galleys, that are under the command of the Baron de la Garde, who carried unto you men, money, and ammunition, because he shall be then in pursuit of the Spanish fleet, that were scattered by a storm. In the meantime blood shall swim in the fight of the Baron de la Garde, and thou, poor prisoner in that island, thou shalt not believe me. Those slaves were they, which went in the year 1555. And the author saying, thou shalt not believe me, shouth, that being very famous in Provence, for his prophecies, the general of the army had asked him concerning the success of his journey, and that he did warn him not to undertake it, but having an express command from the king, his master, he would need go. Therefore he saith, poor prisoner, thou shalt not believe me. We find in this work many examples of those who went to consult with the author concerning the success of their undertakings, as did the Earl of Somerive, before the besieging of Bagnal, to whom he answered, that he should leave the trees loaded with a new kind of fruit, that is to say, of the rebels, whom he caused to be hanged on trees. English. There shall come from Barcelona by sea so great a fleet, that Marseilles shall quake for fear, the islands shall be seized, the help by sea shut up, thy traitor shall swim to land. Anat. Barcelona is a town in Spain, upon the Mediterranean Sea. Marseilles is another in France, upon the same sea. The rest is easy. English. At that time of Cyprus shall be frustrated of its succors, of those of the Aegean Sea, old ones shall be killed, but by Messals and Lepra, their king shall be seducted, and the queen more wronged. Anat. The 2 first verses are plain, the 2 last have need of an Oedipus. English. The great satyr and tiger of Hyrcania shall be a gift presented to those of the ocean, an admiral of a fleet shall come out of Carmania, who shall land in the Thurin Phocian. Anat. By the great satyr and tiger of Hyrcania is meant the king of Persia, who is also king of Hyrcania, abounding with tigers. That king of Persia shall be made a gift to those of the ocean, that is, shall be either drowned in it, or do some wonderful things upon it. Carmania is a province in Asia, belonging to the Turk. The Thurin Phocian is the city of Marseilles in France, so called by the author in this book, because it was a colony of the Phocenses in Greece. It is also called Thurin, because it is seated upon the Tyrrhenian Sea, as Virgil saith, Thurinum navigat equor. English. The tree that had been long dead and withered, in one night shall grow green again, his king shall be sick, his prince shall have his foot tied, being feared by his enemies, he shall make his sails to rebound. Anat. The two first verses are metaphorical and are to be understood of a considerable person who, having been for a long time despised and under a cloud, shall on a sudden rise again and be in repute. The two last verses are intelligible enough. English. The world being near its last period, Saturn shall come yet late to his return, the empire shall be translated into broad nations, Narbonne shall have her eye picked out by a hawk. Not. The meaning of the first and second verses is, that the world shall be at an end, before Saturn hath performed his whole course, which, if I do not mistake, is thought by the astronomers to be of 36,000 years. The third verse signifieth, that before the end of the world, the empire shall be translated or possessed by a black nation, for broad in Old French signifieth black, whence it cometh that to this day they call a handsome black woman, une belle brode, that is a fair black woman. Narbonne is a famous city in Languedoc, and the seat of an archbishop. English. In Avignon all the chief of the empire shall stay, by reason of Paris being desolate, Tricast shall stop the anabolic anger, Lion by change shall be ill-comforted. Not. The first and second verse signify, that the Pope once more shall keep his seat in Avignon, which is a town in France belonging to the Pope, and where formerly they kept their see, for the space of above 100 years. As for the word Tricast, there must be a foul error in the impression, or else, I must confess I understand it not. By the anabolic anger, is meant those of Barbary, where Annibal was born. Lyon is a famous town in France, where is kept the greatest trading for bills of exchange. English. For 500 years no account shall be made of him who is the ornament of his time, then on a sudden he shall give so great a light, that for that age he shall make them to be most contented. Not. The words and the sense are plain. English. We shall see the Moorish law to decline, after which, another more seducing shall arise, Borysthenes shall be the first that shall fall, by gifts and tongue that law shall be most seducing. Not. This foretelleth the declining of the Mahometan religion, after which another religion shall be set up worse than the Mahometan. The first decay of it shall begin in Scythia, a kingdom belonging to the king of Persia, through which runneth the river Borysthenes. English. The chief of Phossen shall have his throat cut, by the leader of the hunt and greyhound, the fact committed by those of the Tarpeian mountain, Saturn being in Leo XIII. Of February. Not. Phossen is a city in Piedmont, belonging to the Duke of Savoy, the chief man or governor of which is threatened here to have his throat cut by some soldiers either of Rome, or belonging to Rome, signified here by the Tarpeian mountain, upon which the capital was built, and this fact to be committed by one that shall be a famous huntsman, upon the 13th of February, Saturn being then in the sign of Leo. English. A new law shall occupy a new country, towards Syria, Judea and Palestina, the great barbarian empire shall fall down, before Phoebe mocketh an end of her course. Not. The words and sense are plain. English. Two royal brothers shall war so much one against the other, that the war between them shall be mortal, each of them shall seize upon strong places, their quarrel shall be concerning kingdom and life. Not. This needeth no interpretation. English. In the meadow fields of Alien and Varniger, of the mountain Lebron near the Durance, armies on both sides, the fight shall be so sharp, that Mesopotamia shall be wanting in France. Not. Alan and Varnager are two small towns in France, seated by the mountain Lebron, near the river called Durance, where the author saith there shall be such a sharp fight, that Mesopotamia shall be wanting in France. To understand this you must know, that Mesopotamia is a country between two rivers from the Greek words mu epsilon sigma omicron, which signifieth middle, and pi omicron tau alpha mu, which signifieth a river. The meaning then of the author is, that the battle so sharp, the ground shall be wanting to bury the dead. English. He that is the least honored among the French, shall be conqueror of the man that was his enemy, strength and terror shall in a moment be tried, when the envious shall be killed with an arrow. Not. This is plain. Century 4. English. There shall be a remnant of blood unspilt, Venice shall seek for succors, after having long waited for it, the city shall be surrendered at the first sound of the trumpet. Not. This to my judgment is concerning the siege of Candia, in which the Venetians for the space of about 20 years desired and expected succors from the Christian princes, which came so slowly, that the city was fain to surrender upon honorable terms, which is the meaning of the first verse, there shall be a remnant of blood unspilt. English. By reason of a death, France shall undertake a journey, they shall have a fleet at sea, and march towards the Pyrenees. Spain shall be in trouble by an army, some of the greatest ladies in France carried away not. The whole sense of this is, that by reason of somebody's death, France shall make war against Spain by sea and land, and put Spain in great trouble. The fourth verse saith, that some of the greatest ladies in France shall be carried away, but the question is, whether by the Spaniards, or, which is more probable, by their own husbands going to war against Spain. English. From Arras and Bourges many colours of black men shall come, a greater number of Gascons shall go on foot, those along the roads shall let Spain blood, near the mountain where Saguntus is seated. Not. Arras and Bourges are cities of France. As for Broads, we have said before that it signify brown men, such as are the Gascoignes, inhabiting the province of Aquitania near Spain. Saguntus is a city in Spain, that was destroyed by the Romans. English. The considerable prince vexed, complaineth and quarreleth, concerning rapes and plunderings done by the Cox and Lebeques great trouble by land, by sea infinite sails, Italy alone shall drive away the French. Not. This considerable prince was Philip II, King of Spain, who was vexed to see the Cox, that is the French, and Lebeques, that is the Turks, joined together under Barbarossa to commit so many rapes and violences upon his subjects. English. The cross shall have peace, under an accomplished divine word, Spain and France shall be united together, a great battle near hand, and a most sharp fight, no heart so stout but shall tremble. Not. We have said before that by divine word, we must not understand the second person of the Trinity, but a divine or theologian, called in Greek theta epsilon lambda omicron gamma omicron, which also signifieth divine word. Therefore the meaning of the first verse is, that under the government of some eminent divine, be like a good pope, the cross shall have peace, that is, the Christian religion shall be in peace, and persecution shall cease. The last three verses are plain. English. After the new clothes shall be found out, there shall be malice, plotting and machination, he shall die the first that shall make trial of it, under colour of Venice, shall be a conspiracy. Not. Everybody may be as wise as I in the interpretation of this. English. The younger son of the great and hated prince, being 20 years old, shall have a great touch of leprosy, his mother shall die for grief, very sad and lean, and he shall die of the disease loose flesh. Not. This is easy to be understood, if we remember that Charles IX, King of France, younger son to Henry II, died of a foul disease, and his mother Catherine of Medicis died of grief. English. The great city shall be taken by a sudden assault, being surprised by night, the watch being beaten, the court of guard and watch of St. Quentin shall be killed, and the gates broken. Not. This great city was the city of St. Quentin in Picardy, taken by assault by Philip II. Anno 1557. English. The chief of the camp in the middle of the crowd, shall be wounded with an arrow through both his thighs, when Geneva being in tears and distress, shall be betrayed by Lausanne and the Switzers. Not. The words and sense are plain. English. The young prince being falsely accused, shall put the camp in trouble, and in quarrel, the chief shall be murdered by the tumult, the sceptre shall be appeased, and after cure the king's evil. Not. This prophecy must needs be concerning England or France, for there is but those two kings that challenge the cure of the king's evil. English. He that shall be covered with a great cloak, shall be induced to commit some great fact, the 12 red ones shall soil the tablecloth, under murder, murder shall be committed. Not. Every one may interpret this as well as I, provided that by the 12 red ones he understandeth 12 cardinals. English. The greatest camp being in disorder, shall be routed, and shall be pursued. Not much after, the army shall encamp again, and the troops set in order, then afterwards, they shall be wholly driven out of France. Not. This prophecy is concerning an outlandish army that shall invade France, and though numerous, yet shall be put to flight, and shall not be much pursued, therefore it shall encamp again, and collect and gather again its troops, and afterwards shall be wholly driven out of France. I am much mistaken if this prophecy came not to pass, when the Duke of Parma at the head of a Spanish numerous army came into France in favor of the League, for Henry IV. Met him at the siege of Rouen, beat him off, and suffered him to retire quietly, and as the common saying is, made him a golden bridge, to retreat into the Low Countries again. English. News being brought of a great loss, the report divulged, the camp shall be astonished, troops being united and revolted, the double phalange shall forsake the great one. Not. This hath a connection with the precedent, for while the Prince of Parma was busied in France, news was brought to his camp that the Hollanders had taken Antwerp, which discouraged his whole host, and made him retire with all speed. The word phalange signifieth a battalion or part of an army, which being expressed here by the word double phalange, signifieth that both horse and foot deserted the Duke of Parma upon the hearing of this news. English. The sudden death of the chief man shall cause a change, and put another in the reign, soon, lay come to so high a degree, in a low age, so that by land and sea ye must be feared. Not. The two first verses are plain. The two last signify that a youth shall come to the kingdom, soon, that is, by reason of the sudden death of the chief man, and late, because being but young, he shall reign so long, that he shall be famous, and feared by sea and land. English. Whence one thought to make famine to come, thence shall come the fullness, the eye of the sea through a doggish covetousness, shall give to both oil and wheat. Not. This prophecy was fulfilled at the famous siege of Ostend, which lasted 3 years and 3 months, for the Hollanders that brought relief to the town, did for covetousness sell the ammunition to the Spaniards that besieged it, for which complaint being made by the States to the Prince of Orange, Maurice of Nassau, as also that they did the like to Newport, which he had besieged, he replied smartly, Do you not know that your Count Ray men would sail into hell, were it not for fear to have their sails burnt? English. The free city from a free one shall become slave, and of the banished and dreamers shall be a retreat, the king changed in mind, shall not be so froward to them. Of 100 they shall become more than 1,000. Not. Here you must observe that the author being a papist, speaketh this concerning the city of Geneva, which he saith from a free city became a slave, when it shook off the Duke of Savoy's domination, and became a retreat to the Protestants, whom he called the banished and dreamers. In the third verse, by the king changed in his mind that shall not be so froward to them, he meaneth Henry IV. Who having changed the Protestant religion, to be a Roman Catholic, did undertake their protection against the Duke of Savoy their prince. Hence followeth the explication of the 4th verse, when he saith, that of 100 they shall become more than 1,000, for in few years the Protestants became so numerous, that they drove the Roman Catholics wholly out of the town, and so have remained to this day masters of it. English. There shall be a change at Beaune, Neuilly, Chalons, Dijon, the Duke going about to raise taxes, the merchant near the river shall see the tail of a fish, having the bill of a cormorant, the door shall be shut. Not. Beaune, Chalons, and Dijon are cities in France. Neuilly is a town in Germany near the Rhine, 3 or 4 leagues below Cologne. For the rest, everyone may make his own interpretation, for it is hard to guess who this duke should be, or that fish either, that shall have a cormorant's bill after whom the door shall be shut. English. The most learned in the celestial sciences shall be found fault with, by ignorant princes. Punished by proclamation, chased away as wicked, and put to death where they shall be found. Not. This is plain, and signifieth no more than a persecution against the professors of heavenly sciences, such as are astrologers, astronomers, and see English. Before Rouen a siege shall be laid by the Insubrians. By sea and land the passages shall be shut up, those of Hainaut, Flanders, Ghent, and Liege, with their troops shall plunder the seashore. Not. This is still concerning the Duke of Parma's army when he came into France against Henry IV. In favor of the League, for his army wherewith he besieged Rouen was compounded of all those nations, the greatest part of which were Italians, called here Insubrians, from the Latin word Insubria, which signifieth the countries of Savoy and Piedmont. English. Peace and plenty shall not be long praised, all the time of his reign the flower de luce shall be deserted, bodies shall die by water, earth shall be brought, hoping vainly to be there buried. Not. This only foretelleth a great famine and inundation in France, signified here by the flower de luce. English. The change shall be very hard, the city and country shall gain by the change, a high prudent heart shall be put in, the unworthy expelled, sea, land, people shall change its condition. Not. This needeth no interpretation. English. The great army that shall be rejected, in a moment shall be wanted by the king. The faith promised afar off shall be broken, so that he shall be left naked in a pitiful case. Not. This is plain. English. The legion in the maritime fleet, calcineth Magnus, shall burn brimstone and pitch, the long rest of the secure place, they shall seek Port Ceylon, but fire shall consume them. Not. Here we must observe 4 things. The first is, that Calais is called by the author, the long rest of the secure place. Because then viz. In the year 1555. It was yet in the power of the King of England, and had been quietly before, for the space of 287 years, that is, from the year 1347 till the year 1555. And was so still, till the year 1557. When the Duke of Guise took it, whence we gather that it was a secure place that had enjoyed so long a rest. The second is, that those of Dieppe did watch for the Spaniards, in the passage between Dover and Calais, therefore the author saith, they shall seek Port Ceylon. Ceylon port or harbour is always taken by the author for an harbour in the ocean. The third is, that the great fight between the French and the Spaniards was by fire, so that most part of the ships on each side were burnt, and the Spanish and French soldiers did cast themselves into the sea, to save their lives in their enemies' ships, where they were slain. The fourth is, that those of Dieppe being extraordinary skillful in sea fights had made great quantity of artificial fires, to cast into the Spanish ships, but the ships grappling one with another, they were burnt on both sides. Upon those first circumstances the 2 first verses say, that the legion in the fleet calcineth Magnus, that is lodestone burnt, and shall burn pitch and brimstone, to make artificial fires. The 3rd and 4th verse say, that this sea legion shall seek an harbour in the ocean, which shall be a secure place, by a long rest, that is Calais. She will seek that Ceylon harbour to shelter herself, because Calais did then belong to the English, but by reason of the narrowness of the sea, the French watched for the Spaniards there, and to shew that they sought only for Calais to meet the Spaniards, they carried the Spanish ships which they took into Dieppe, and not into Calais. The French impression hath a fault here, putting Port Hercule instead of Port Ceylon, which is a manifest error, for the taking of Port Hercule by the Florentines the 14th of June 1555 was by a land army. Besides, that Port Ceylon is always taken by the author for a port in the ocean.